Hello, and you're listening to FPcast, the podcast for Fruitless Pursuits where we bullshit about the week in pop culture. I am Luke.
And I'm Jacinta.
And this week we are talking about...
Movies, television, collectibles, video games, comics, board games, and more.
Rough movies.
God, we have really put in the hard yards for you guys this week. Yesterday we had an epic day at the cinema. We were there from, about 9:30 till 4:30? And we took in Rough Night and Cars 3.
It was quite a day.
We are here to tell you all about that. And in fact, I'm so excited about talking about those reviews. That's going to be the key part of the show. We've also finally caught up on Power Rangers. Plus, there's some diversity stuff to talk about. So let's just hammer into the news and get this show rolling, yeah? Although, I will kick it off with one of these. Just because the Tom Cruise scream, a lot of great feedback from last week. People love it. It was taken away from you, but we're giving it back. We're reclaiming the night. Podcasters are doing it for themselves.
Yes.
Standing on their
very
own
small audience.
2 feet.
Yeah.
All right. So, a little bit of news. This is, I know you were thrilled when we talked about Haley Steinfeld being in a Bumblebee spin-off because a lot of things checks a lot of boxes for you. One, big Transformers fan. You love the Transformers movies.
My favourite.
The idea that they're spin-offs and you're going to get to see even more of them with me. That's fun. That's excellent,
Wonderful,
right?
yeah.
And you love hearing me talk about Haley Steinfeld as well.
Not creepy at all. It's totally cool.
She's like 20-something. So that's really great, just because I'm 50-something. And we found out that not only is she going to be in this thing, but it's going to be set in the 80s.
Okay.
So, a couple of cool things about this. One...
There's no cool things about this.
No.
There's
Listen,
none of them.
Look, everybody is nostalgic about 80s G1 Transformers. So maybe
I wasn't
we'll
even
get...
like alive, but anyway, fine.
Maybe we'll get Bumblebee as a VW Beetle for a while there.
Okay.
Which could be fun. I have a feeling that like VW at one point were like, oh no, we're not really into that sort of thing because we don't want our Nazi death machine car shown as a death machine.
Yeah.
I think, already that conjures up some Herbie the Love Bug vibes, and I don't know how much you know about Herbie. This was a car that was prone to go bananas. In fact, they even made a movie about that one time when he went so bananas, like the story had to be told. So I think that's pretty exciting. I'm getting a weird crackle in my headphones. Are you getting that?
No,
I don't think it's on the show. Okay, it must be me. So that's really good. Like even if you didn't grow up with Herbie going bananas, you must have been a massive fan of the Lindsay Lohan Herbie Love Bug.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he was just like, oh, yeah, sit on that seat. Oh, you're so sweaty.
Yeah. I watched it daily for months.
Yeah. Except on Fridays, when you watch Lindsay Lohan's Freaky Friday.
Yeah, of course. Obviously. Gosh.
Take a day off, people. We've all got our favourites, but still. And the other thing, Haley Steinfeld in the 80s, this brings her closer to my age, which means you can't make fun of it anymore.
That's not how time works.
No, I think if it's in a movie that works, that's time.
Okay, so is it going to be Haley? So Haley Steinfeld was like a tiny baby or like not even born yet?
No.
In the 80s?
Back to the Future's in the 80s and Michael J. Fox is closer to my age.
That's not
you
how it
can't
works.
refute that.
No, that is not how it works.
Huh?
No.
That's proof.
Okay, fine.
Right
it is
there.
proof.
So we're looking forward to that. I'm hoping she's got a bit of a Punky Brewster vibe, odd socks, that kind of thing. I think that'd be fantastic.
Oh, that other famous 80s child.
A little bit of neon. Other news around the traps. Danny Elfman is scoring the Justice League movie.
Okay. I don't care as long as they keep the Wonder Woman theme. I don't give a shit.
Well, again, just in the same way that putting on Joss Whedon and his sensibilities that we talked about before is so different from Zack Snyder's sensibilities. Like, that Wonder Woman theme compared to, Danny Elfman music is so different, right? I mean, Danny Elfman, you just get the tempo up. And it's going to be music that goes... And then you can put whatever you want over the top of that. Yeah. So, it's quite a Frankenstein's monster. What is happening? Are you hearing this?
I'm not getting anything. You've got like... Oh, I don't know. There's some notification popping up there.
I'm getting chimes. This is so weird. It was like the spirit of Danny.
It's a ghost.
Spirit of Danny. What's still happening? You can't hear this?
I cannot hear it.
Hang on. All right, we're back. I think I've sorted that out. I've unplugged the iPad because that was freaking me out. There was definitely a ghost in the machine.
Banish the ghost.
Holy shit. What I was talking about, Justice League, Frankenstein of a monster. Like, it's like they've dug up a whole lot of criminals, Joss Whedon, Danny Elfman, etc., and stitched all their parts together. I also think it's interesting that poor DC, and as you know, we've got nothing against them, but they cannot win a trick in a way.
No,
because you've got, like...
I wonder if they, like, built their headquarters on an Indian burial ground or something.
Possibly.
There's something else going on here.
Possibly did. Because you've got them going, okay, we're going to put Joss Whedon on. And Joss Whedon, you know, he made Avengers, which were like, they seem to forget that angry nerds drove him off Twitter after Age of Ultron. But he did that. But now, if timing couldn't be any worse for them, you've got this Joss Whedon Wonder Woman script is leaked, and everybody's going... Oh, this is so shit compared to, like, the real Wonder Woman script. What a hack. So, like, surely the DC X are just face-palming still. Because, like...
They made the right decision and they're still getting smashed for it.
Yeah, I just think that... I mean, people are going to be watching Wonder Woman and how she is portrayed and how the men treat her and how she holds her own against the main characters like a hawk in that film. And as they should. You know, we may as well continue to ride this wave, but I bet they're sweating if it's not perfect. Yeah. Make it perfect, guys. You can do it. Look, reshoot it a third time. It'll be fine. And final bit of news, more superhero movie news. This came as a surprise to me. It shouldn't, but it does. They are doing another X-Men movie in the Singerverse, although he's not directing. It'll be Simon Kinberg, who was the writer on some of the other ones. They are doing X-Men Dark Phoenix.
Well, they've got to make another good one eventually, right? And just keep trying until you get there.
Well, what amazes me is that they've got Fass, McAvoy, Jennifer Lawrence, Nicholas Hoult, Sophie Turner, all those guys are coming back to do it again, especially when they've been pretty vocal in the last year about how they're not so interested in returning to this thing, so...
Yeah, I'm surprised at Jennifer Lawrence, but then she hasn't really been doing heaps of other work at the moment, has she?
No, Passengers was a flop. Joy didn't really hit the heights that she would have liked, so Hunger Games is over, so that franchise money's not coming through.
They must just be getting heaps and heaps of money for this thing. Like, that is the only reason, really. Because Michael Fassbender's doing heaps of work, it's good work. I imagine James McAvoy, when he got the offer come through, just rang Michael Fassbender and went, "Are you doing it?" And he went, "Yes," and he went, "Okay, I'll do it too then."
Yeah, I can't see any of them really doing jobs that make huge amounts of money. So I can't imagine this makes huge amounts of money, but I guess comparatively...
They would get paid lots of money.
Like for Sophie Turner compared to doing an episode of Game of Thrones or McAvoy doing Split or something. So yeah, I don't know, or even Lawrence doing Joy. But yeah, that surprises me. So... At least, maybe it was just because they had those costumes at the end of the film, which they didn't actually use apart from that one scene. And they went, well, maybe we should put these to good use. It'll be a lie again. They'll be in black. So there you go. There's the news. Look forward to that. Dark Phoenix. Oh, and Jessica Chastain looking like she'll be the villain there.
Oh, she definitely wants a big fat pay packet. She hasn't had one yet, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, you do a whole lot of really good movies with integrity and you don't get paid.
Yeah, if you get about $50 for Zero Dark 30, I'm sure.
And before you know it, your Oscar Isaac's going, "Oh, I'm Apocalypse." You know, what's that about? Anyway, let's do our reviews. That's the meat of the show. That's what I really want to talk about today. We had quite the experience yesterday, as we said. Shall we begin with Rough Night? This is the raunchy all-female comedy directed by Lucia somebody. She is a director of Broad City, and she co-wrote this film with Paul W. Downs. Isn't that horrible that I know the white man's name and not the ethnic woman's name?
It is very
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know it.
Okay.
I just remember Downs, Paul W. Downs. But
It is a more memorable name.
he's the personal trainer in Broad City.
Broad City, yeah.
Yeah, so they wrote this thing. It's her first time directing a feature, and it stars Scarlett Johansson, so I was going to end up having to see this regardless. Also, Kate McKinnon, who I like, and Zoe Kravitz, and Gillian Bell, and
Ilana Glazner.
Alana Glazer. So there you go. And yeah, they kill a stripper. The end. So what do you think?
It was shit, dude. It was a piece of shit. I was actually kind of looking forward to this because I went, look, with all those people involved, it cannot be that bad. But, like, guys, imagine Broad City crossed with Bridesmaids, but with all the jokes removed. That's what this film is. It is garbage.
Yeah, I'm not going to go in as strong. I'm not going to say, like, it's a piece of shit. I don't know if anything, like, I feel is a total piece of shit, but
It's a comedy that wasn't funny.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
that, you know, and it failed at doing its job.
I literally laughed once, and unfortunately it was during something a man did. It wasn't one of the female characters. It's a very bland, unambitious movie, which I think is the thing that really gets me, and it squanders so much talent. And you think, why are we doing movies? Like, why are we paying to go and see a movie? Why are they spending... it wasn't a big budget movie. I think it was about 11 million or something. But why are they spending that money and using everybody's time when you would get far more laughs out of an episode of Broad City? And so much more heart and humour, and like it has so much more to say as well. Like, they do that cliched, oh, but let's all talk about the real problem here. We're friends and these are our unspoken issues and, you know, etc. And I've heard these people, the writer and director, talking on a podcast about that and how it's about these relationships and stuff. But it is all so telegraphed, so formulaic. You don't feel anything because you've seen it a billion times before. It's not earned. And like the friendships between the two Broad City people in Broad City is far, far, far more believable and meaningful than anything that we see here.
Yep.
So it does seem like a big squandering of talent. It's a edgy comedy that has not a single edgy image in it. Like, there's nothing memorable or shocking or surprising or... And apart from really Paul W. Downs' own character, there's no one even putting themselves into a vulnerable situation where you think, oh, this person's really going the extra mile for comedy, or this person's really, like, putting themselves out there, which is where I think a lot of comedy comes from. I mean, if these people are willing to go, you know, this far, how far do we go as an audience in terms of, you know... A great example of this, and some minor spoilers throughout here, not that I think it's the kind of movie that you can really spoil. Like, they go to a club and they do a dance sequence up on stage to... What's that song called?
Is it like my neck, my back? Oh, I can't remember. I don't know what it's called.
That lick my back, neck, pussy, crack song.
Yeah.
And it's not a funny dance.
No.
It's not a sexy dance.
It's kind of trying to be, but it's not.
But it's not. Yeah,
No.
there's nothing memorable about it. And you think, this is just wasted screen time. Like, what the fuck is going on? This is Suzanne calling.
See, I can hear that.
Hang on a second, guys. I'm just going to pause it. We're back and it was a pocket call.
Yeah. What is going on
happening
today?
to the show today? I'm going to keep all this in.
Yeah.
Because someone needs to get to the bottom of this. So yeah, not a memorable thing. It's just wasted screen time. It's not something like... I haven't seen, what's his face, is Joe Manganiello dancing in the convenience store? I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it a lot.
Actually, after our day of pain, I went to a friend's house and I... not made her watch, but we watched Magic Mike XXL for the very first
There you
time
go.
for her. She died during that scene, and it is amazing.
You'd think in a comedy with these group of very funny women that you would put them together and you would do something with a sequence like that. It's like the drug use is drug use for the sake of it. Like, you see them do drugs, but then
putting drugs in movies isn't edgy anymore, guys.
No, it's like watching someone eat a pie. Like, and there's no consequence. It's not that it alters their behavior from then on. In fact, an hour later, in terms of the movie's timeline, it's like they never did it. Whereas, at least with Paul W. Downs' character, the things he does have consequences.
And they escalate.
And his character
Yeah.
reflects the choices he's made. Whereas that doesn't happen. These women act however they need to in the next scene. And should we break down, talk about some of these individual performances, these characters? Because that's something I really want to get into. I was very worried going in about Kate McKinnon playing Australian. Like, you have to get it right, and it can't be a novelty that relies on cliches and things. And it's not as bad as some stuff I've seen, but it's still not right. And it still annoyed the shit out of me. There's some pretty gross, lazy Australian stereotypes there. And, I mean, call me oversensitive about it or whatever. I know it's like a personal bugbear, but I think it's so fucking lazy. I think America's not in a position right now to be like just doing lazy bullshit. You guys are so different and culturally weird and you like things that we don't, you know. It's like, fuck you. Like, do you not want friends at this point?
And there's no need for her to be Australian. Like, whether it was just I just want to do something fun and different, so let's make the character Australian. It just makes no sense.
I heard that they based the characters on people they knew, and perhaps there was someone that was Australian. It sets up that she's not part of the original group. Scarlett's character has studied abroad, and she's met her there, so she's kind of the outsider and the interloper. And I can understand it in that sense. But to get an American to play it, to make all the sort of, like, she drives a fucking jet ski to school. She thinks she can communicate with animals.
She thinks they sell, like, sausages at pizza shops. That's not even a fucking cliche.
Something good happens and she goes, Happy Boxing Day, because we have Boxing Day, which is an English thing, and we're an English colony. And she brings out Vegemite twice. And she doesn't get the accent right. She does the thing that Americans fuck up every single time they do the accent. She says basket. She says this place is covered in glass. She says can't, basket, glass, fuck you. She says ass.
And I heard beforehand that she learnt her accent just by listening to Australian podcasts. And I want to know what the fuck she's been listening to, because they can't speak.
And I don't believe that there aren't... I do believe that this was a movie that was done in a short amount of time. On the podcast I listened to, they did say that the shooting, didn't have a lot of takes. It was all very quickly done. You can tell that just by the lack of ambition. I mean, if you think that there's going to be a huge sort of... It's not The Hangover. There's not suddenly a tiger or changes of location or anything. It's all pretty much in the house, and not much happens after the stripper dies. So I do believe that it wasn't a thing where they were hiring a dialogue coach or anything like that. But if you can't find an Australian or an Australian reference in LA, I would fucking do it for free. I would just listen to one line and go, don't say basket.
They could surely just walk into a coffee shop. Surely there's an Australian working behind the counter at a coffee shop.
Don't say basket. Don't say glass, say glass. Don't say can't, say can't. Like, it's fucking simple. Always draw out all the stuff. It's a basket, you can't. So that annoyed me a lot. And let me tell you the truth about Vegemite America. I feel like this almost should be half-hour history. But Vegemite, like this idea that Australians have it on hand and that they all love it and they're going to bring it out and she puts it on her pizza.
Does she?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that.
Yeah, when they get the pizza, she's got the
I got
open...
zoned out from boredom at that point.
She's got the open Vegemite jar next to her, and the Vegemite is on the pizza. Look, Vegemite in Australia is like Jesus. And I don't mean it's our Lord and Saviour. I mean, you have to be indoctrinated by your parents to, think that it's a natural thing at a very young age. Because people do that. They give babies toast with a bit of Vegemite, babies chewing on that. And just like Jesus, if you accept that at an early age and you think, okay, well, that's normal, I believe this, then fair enough, you're a Vegemite person. But you can't just, someone who's an adult and has never had Vegemite, you can't just go, hey, Vegemite, am I right? Try it. It's trickier.
And I think because on the talk shows and stuff, and they'll get international celebrities to try Vegemite and stuff like that, they always give them too much. You know, like you just need a little thin spread of Vegemite. Because, of course, if you're eating an inch thick of Vegemite on a piece of bread, of course it's going to taste bad and you're going to have a bad experience.
And there are like 10,000 things in this room. But if you look up on that shelf there's a blue teddy bear, which my grandmother bought for me when I was born. It has a Vegemite stain above one of its eyes. So I was definitely given Vegemite as a baby. That is conclusive evidence that would hold up in a court of law. Not a kangaroo court, America. I'm not to fucking bring your stereotypes to this story. But just like Jesus, you know, when you grow up, you can just go, hey, now I'm thinking about this. Now I know more about the world. I realize that there's something not right about this. This isn't for me. And that's what happened with me and Vegemite.
Really?
Yeah.
I love Vegemite.
Yeah, see, I'm not a fan.
Delicious.
I could eat it. Like, I'm not going to be an American and go, oh, what's this? Like, I could have it.
No. There's times where I'm just like, you know what I want right now? Some fresh bread, butter, and Vegemite.
Did you have it since you were a baby?
Fuck yes, probably.
Yeah, so you've got faith.
Yeah.
And you can't,
I have faith in
shake
Vegemite.
that. I'm not going to change that.
And someone could go, well, it's yeasty vegetable spread. And I'm like, I don't give a fucking shit what it is. It tastes fantastic.
Happy Easter.
Yeah.
So, there you go. I found that all very problematic. And
she was saying that, like, they were calling her Kiwi or something, and she's like, oh, that's very culturally insensitive. I'm like, no, it's fucking not. It is not culturally insensitive to call an Australian person a New Zealander.
that's just rude.
It's a bit rude if you're doing it on purpose, but it's not culturally fucking insensitive.
I don't know what was going on. I didn't like it at all. And I wanted to like Kate McKinnon because I've grown quite fond of her. I think that when she's in her wheelhouse, she's been the highlight of some pretty poor comedies for me in the past. But she was just overacting. Like, she was in a different film to everybody else. She's gurning at the camera constantly in that sort of like when Jim Carrey became stale sort of way. And it's got to be more to it than that, because I didn't love it. And Gillian Bell, who has played some amazing characters in the past, I think she was a highlight of Office Christmas Party, is just so obnoxious, loud, American, screaming, proud of the ignorance, proud of being rude to everybody. And even though there's a sort of introspective point where it's like, oh, maybe I'm just an asshole, goes back to being a loud, ignorant asshole who just screams fuck all the time within minutes. And even if she hadn't reverted to that character at the end, I still would have had to have watched an hour and 20 minutes of that character. So not really a trade-off. Alana is diet Broad City.
Yeah. She was my favourite, but only because I just really love Broad City, and even seeing a shit version of that character is still, it's almost like watching Broad City.
But you'll see so much more. Like, none of them had any physicality. Each one has Scarlett gets knocked on the head and falls over. Kate McKinnon falls off a jet ski. Gillian Bell falls over a couple of times. It's just really broad slapstick stuff. It's not, and using doubles and things. It's not a comedian. I mean, fuck, even when Jim Carrey was getting stale, the guy could use his body. Like, if you're going to rely on physical humor, like, let's see a comedian do something funny. But they didn't. Zoe Kravitz was fine. Actually, I thought she had a couple of moments where she was quite strong. But she wasn't a character that was at the forefront.
I think she had probably one of the better, not arcs really, but she was probably the most fleshed out, interesting character. She
got to do the most outrageous thing, even though it wasn't really shown. And that's the thing. Like, you can't just talk about... Like, there's so much talking about the outrageous things that they do and how outrageous is this, but you never see it. And if it's just talking about it, why isn't it a podcast? Look, foot jobs. There. You got that for free.
Edgy.
So edgy. Like, me saying that isn't worth your...
Doing cocaine.
$16. Yeah. Like, you just don't say anything. And elephant in the room, Scarlet-shaped elephant, which is a very small, nicely shaped elephant. Yeah, I didn't know. I was nervous about seeing this. I'm always, because I've got the podcast with analyze performances, and she was fine. Like, she doesn't have a lot to do. She's not stretching herself comedically, but I was actually pleasantly surprised at how well she fit into that group and worked with that group. And I just still think she's a solid presence and a really grounding presence. I think they definitely relied on her, because if you didn't have that sort of solid person there in the center. I don't know what this film was, but I thought she acquitted herself quite well, and I think she really committed to the more serious stuff, even though the serious stuff isn't earned by the film and therefore doesn't have any real impact. But yeah, I mean, I like to watch her.
I know.
She was good. I can imagine she's going to be play Hillary Clinton in a biopic at some point. She plays a senator in this, and there's points with her hair and her suits where I just go, yeah, I can see that'll be your like Oscar bait role in 10, 20 years. Hillary Clinton story. So yeah, really disappointing.
Yeah.
Just the squandering.
I gave it 1.5 stars, which is very low for me.
I gave it 2. Mainly, I guess, because of Scarlett. I like her performance in it, even though I don't like the film. It's just such a lazy film.
Yeah.
It adds nothing to... And it's a story you've seen before so many times. Very Bad Things, I've only seen once at the cinema. I enjoyed it at the time. I imagine there's huge amounts within it now watching that you would be absolutely offended by, and it would be completely indefensible because of the type of movie it was and at the time that it came out. But I mean, that was an edgy film. Like, have you seen that?
No.
The endings for those characters after what they've done and where it sort of puts them is like the absolute opposite of Rough Night in a lot of ways.
Yeah, right.
And I'll tell you after we record. Not that I'm necessarily recommending people watch it, because I'm sure it is. It was considered pretty offensive back at the
Was it 80s or 90s?
90s.
Okay.
And it's like Favreau and Vince Vaughn, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're right.
And yeah, it's pretty out there. Okay, shall we switch gears to Cars 3?
Yes.
The third Cars movie. Why don't you fill us in on your Cars journey?
Yeah. Well, I knew this was coming up. I had never seen a Cars movie in my life. So
You'd seen
this
movies
week,
with cars in them.
I had,
Okay.
such as the wonderful Fast and the Furious franchise, which I wish we'd been watching instead of this. I watched the first movie during the week, and I hated it. I absolutely fucking hated it. Like, I was so bored, and I was so disappointed, because I know that people go, oh, it's for kindergartners and it's just not for you, and that's fine, but every other Disney Pixar movie has been able to add that extra level to not make it seem like a dumb piece of shit designed to sell toys.
I think it's untrue as well when people say that it is aimed a lot younger and that it is just for kids, because that's never in the history of what Disney have been doing. It's never been their agenda. And if you look at anything where they're spending that sort of money on films, they are always going for the broadest audience possible. You can see that in just the way films are rated these days compared to how they, the breadth of how they were rated in previous years. So I don't buy that for a second.
So I watched the first one and I hated it, and I was advised not to watch the second one if I had hated the first one because it was much worse. So I watched the trailer and I hated that.
Second one is unwatchable. It's a complete shift.
Yeah. So I watched the trailer for that and then I hated that. And so look, I wasn't really expecting great things going into Cars 3. I was expecting to hate it. And look, for 7/8 of this movie, I did hate this movie. It's so fucking boring. I mean, to its credit, at least it does shift things back to the track, at least, which is what race cars are about, I suppose. And it's trying to add that extra layer by giving us an older athlete who is starting to lose their edge and being taken over by younger athletes, and that, idea of becoming obsolete and stuff like that. But that's been done 1,000 times before. These movies are just full of just tropes and cliches and bullshit, and the characters are dumb and I hate them all. And like, the only redeeming factor of this movie is not something I'm going to spoil, but the way the movie finishes. While I have no interest in seeing a Cars film ever again, if the way that it finishes is the way that the franchise plans to continue, then I think that is very good.
Yeah.
End.
So thanks, Disney, for inviting us to that preview.
Oh, and they fucking gave us these donuts before the movie as well. And they were awful. Did you eat yours?
I did, and I regretted it.
I took one bite and threw it straight in the bin. Like, I picked it up, it was moist.
It was shaped like a tire. Yeah,
It was
but
moist.
I have been behaved in my eating for the last 6 weeks. That was the first, like, sweet thing I'd had, and I justified it by going, you know what? I'm here. It's a Saturday. I'm at a preview. I'm going to have this. It wasn't
It was
worth
disgusting.
But that's not Disney's fault.
It's not Disney's fault.
No,
I imagine
it was a cool idea. But what was more problematic for me was just the fact that it was, 2:00 arrival for 2:30 start. And normally
Didn't
we
start
get to
till
sit
nearly
in
3
the
o'clock.
cinema and we stood outside till after 1:30, stood for half hour in line, which after already seeing a movie that day, it was warm and I was tired. And
There was a point where I was going to say to you, can we please just go home? Because I did not want to see the film anyway.
It didn't put me in a very good mood for the beginning of the film.
I nearly fell asleep halfway through.
But that's such a, privilege problem. Oh, we got invited to a free preview of a film that's not even out yet, and I had to wait in a line. Blah. So, yeah, that's all fine. But it does sort of explain the mindset going in. As for the film, I do want to commend Disney for dealing with the delicate subject of race. Mm-hmm. I think they did that very well. I mean, there was a race at the beginning. There was a race at the end. And it's not always easy to talk about race. Certainly not easy to talk to kids about race. But they really embraced it. And I thought, I was like, wow, this is so open about race. Yeah, a lot of race-related issues. In Cars 3.
Yeah.
Which sort of drove it along. I want to commend them for going back to basics, for going back to the roots, examining, what is a Cars story about? And I 100% agree that the kind of way they handle the ending and the message of the ending is quite positive. So it's certainly got a lot more integrity than Cars 2. And I think it's pretty widely known that Cars merchandise just outsells by a huge margin I think all the other Pixar franchises.
Oh yeah, it would do
together. I mean, that is the real reason we're having the film, in the same way that we got the Alice in Wonderland sequel because the first one made over $1 billion, and we got Pirates 5 because they were making so much money. So this is one of Disney's commercial ventures. And I guess if it pays for other stuff, then that's okay. But we've been really positive about Disney films over the last couple of years. I think they're just on top of their game in a way that they haven't been for a long... they're just doing really great shit, and they are totally leading the pack compared to what DreamWorks and, they're not doing Boss Baby. But these films where they do sequels to just basically get that big cash jump, they're weakest, and I hope they eventually figure something out. I guess the fact that Alice and Pirates, I don't think, have made anywhere near the money that they would have hoped, then maybe we'll get rid of these. But I guess it means you've got a group of people at Pixar with the unenviable task of going, what's Cars 3? And considering that, I think, they came up with something okay. That said, I gave it a 2, and I'm not a fan of it just because it's not funny for a start. Even weaker efforts like Good Dinosaur has some really funny characters doing
and it has
cameos.
Some very sweet and emotional moments.
Yeah, or some clever lines, and if you think of something like Toy Story with a film with a heap of characters, the gags are just so fast. And how funny is Zootopia even?
Yeah.
And this just doesn't have anything that really even raised a smile, and it didn't even feel like it was trying to either. So that is a down point. And as you said, the middle is boring. It's very repetitive.
There's a reason that movies do training montages, guys, because we don't need to see it all.
Yeah, it just doesn't go anywhere. It felt like it was stream of consciousness for a while there. Like someone was writing fanfic and was like, okay, and then they went to the beach and they raced to the pier, and then they, There's the demolition derby sequence, which is really the only different, interesting thing in that whole middle section of the movie. I sort of went in not really knowing what this thing was about, and you realise watching it, it's not really about anything. I mean, it's so simple. Like, thematically it is, but story-wise, it's very basic. There's not a lot to it at all. And big shout out to Boo from Orange is the New Black, who was typecast as a very aggressive school bus in a demolition derby. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, no one stands out, do they? Like, Nathan, I said to you afterwards, like, who played the silver car? Because, like, he sort of comes in and you think, oh, this is supposed to be someone, and then that character never really has any impact and just sort of fades away.
Not really a good character, not really a bad character.
And then
They're
you were
just
like,
so neutral.
Oh, it's Nathan Fillion. I was like, oh, okay, well, got to do something, I suppose. So, yeah, no, I can't recommend it. That said, I've seen a lot of kids talking about and running around and being excited about Cars, so I think it hits that audience. But I do feel our crowd, which was mostly kids, were pretty restless during this film. It's the first time I've seen kids actually wandering around the aisles and going down to the front of the theatre and talking and shuffling as much as they did in this thing.
It was only a little over an hour and a half, but it felt much longer than that.
Yeah, I nearly fell asleep at one point too. So there you go.
Yeah, I gave it 2 stars too. Like, I don't think it was really that much better than Rough Night either, but half a star for the saving it right at the end.
And has more integrity, I think, than Rough Night. It's more of a... At least they are still doing timeless films. You know, there's nothing that is going to massively date it or anything, like in terms of the music that's used and the references. It's pretty self-contained, and I do appreciate that they future-proof their films in a way that DreamWorks and stuff certainly don't. So there you go, and no answer to the secret origin of Cars. If you were wondering, where do cars come from? Why do they have human features like doors and handles and things, but there are no humans in this world? It was not answered.
Maybe one day.
We didn't get to find out about the... Well, look, if they bring out that film, I'd be very keen to see it.
Well, you can go and see it and you can tell me all about it.
About when the cars kill all the humans and take over their world and try and emulate them. Yeah, all right. And we both finally saw Power Rangers because it's out now on DVD, etc. That was probably the biggest blockbuster film that we missed this year because of better things being on. How did you go with this?
I didn't mind it. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. Like, if I gave Rough Night 1.5, Cars 2, Power Rangers 2.5. Right down the middle for me. There's moments in it where I really liked what it was trying to do. I did actually quite like that group of kids, and if they did do a sequel with that same group of kids, I would be happy to go and see it. They made a real effort with sort of diversity and showing very different home lives and that kind of thing, whereas the old Power Rangers are all very squeaky clean good kids, and that's not interesting to watch. I think that the best scene in the whole film is when they did kind of really go back to that campy, flashy, ninja-y, Power Rangers-y thing when they're fighting the rock creatures up on a cliff, and it was just everyone's flipping and kicking, and I was like, yeah, this is great. And then it sort of peters off a little bit. I didn't think the Dinobots, or the Dinozord things, looked fantastic, particularly the mammoth. That was pretty balls.
You have such pretty balls.
And I thought the Megazord looked like a fucking shit Transformer, which just really ticked a lot of boxes for me, obviously. And yeah, I think ultimately it was not that bad. There was some promise, but at the end of the day, it was not a very good film.
Yeah, I didn't love it. I agree. It's not terrible. It's watchable. I gave it 2. But I have a different relationship to Power Rangers. I was in sort of about year 10, 11 when I saw it for the first time
Yeah, I was
on TV.
much younger. I was right in that that real.
So it would have been about 16 probably when I saw it. And it was so camp. I just couldn't believe what I was watching. Like, it looked like the worst thing I'd ever seen. Like, I thought that they were deliberately just being camp. Like, I thought it was deliberately shit. So the idea that people sort of saw it and thought that it had something really surprised me. And I don't think the movie knows what it wants to be, because I find it hard to take something that's so silly and so camp and try to make it serious and more adult. Like, to have these characters say something really sort of grim and serious and say shit, I'm like, what is this thing? Like, you're taking something so childish and throwaway that was serving a completely different purpose, and you're trying to, like, justify it for, like, the man babies again. And I say that, like, knowing that I'm a man baby. So they have real serious issues, and you're going to deal with all their backstories in a real serious soap opera teen angst way. But then you're going to have Elizabeth Banks as Rita Repulsa chewing the scenery and just being a maniac. Like, it's such a weird mix that I end up going, like, who is this for? I probably would have rather have seen, like, a big budget, crazy, fun, camp film.
Yeah, there wasn't enough Power Rangering.
No, it takes literally an hour and a half until they put on the suits.
Yeah, but once they start Power Rangering, it's not too bad.
Very overextended, belabored sort of impotence metaphor thing about them trying to get the suits happening. And especially when we all know why they can't do it, and we're screaming at the screen, like, you gotta trust and believe in each other.
But the worst thing, the absolute worst thing about this film is there's a fairly major plot point that they use as kind of motivation, I guess, to kind of get their shit together. And, like, if any of them knew CPR at all, or even knew of the concept of CPR, that entire plot point would just never have happened.
I didn't like... See, you like the kids. I didn't like the kids. I thought they were pretty... Like, you're right in the diversity aspect, but in terms of their dialogue and their sort of one-liners, they were just the most bland, basic, mainstream throwaway stuff. You look at, like, when they're fighting and they're those sorts of characters that are going, like, come get some, that's what I'm talking about, and those kind of lines. And I just don't think that should be acceptable anymore. I think Civil War, that airport fight, has got to be the template for how to handle that, because people aren't saying just, hey, come get some, take that, or anything. It's all character based. It's about character traits. There's a lot of humor and interesting dialogue happening throughout the fighting. That should be the gold standard in sort of fun and engaging action stuff. Otherwise, it's such a... I know, it's so piecemeal to me, because, yeah, you're right, like, you see them up on that cliff, and it does look exactly like the old one, but better.
Yeah, but better, yeah.
And they're all flipping around and stuff, and that's great. But then what they're saying, I don't like the characters, I'm not invested in the characters, you know, so it becomes a really nice piece of eye candy, but there's nothing that backs it up that makes me go, well, I like those characters. Whereas you look at how Avengers, for example, has managed to do that. You care about characters that you've heard about in the past. You knew there was a Hawkeye, but you didn't care about Hawkeye.
No.
Nobody really cares about Hawkeye anyway, except for you. But you know what I mean? They made you give a shit about characters.
Actually, it was probably his first character poster that made me give a shit about Hawkeye. But yeah, sure, I like his character too.
But Ant-Man's been around since the 60s. Did everybody give a shit about Ant-Man? Where everyone like, we got to have an Ant-Man movie? No, but they put in Paul Rudd and they gave him some great dialogue and he looks like he was able to add some great things himself. And now, like, watching that character fight and interact with the others is a joy. You even get that extra joy of going, like, oh, imagine a scene with Ant-Man and Hawkeye. Imagine a scene with Ant-Man and Vision. Imagine a scene, you know, you were so invested in those characters that it feels interesting when you mix them up and you see them together. You go, I'd love to see these two do a mission, or I'd love to see this combination. But I can't see that in Power Rangers.
Well, it's a much smaller world too. You can't really.
No, but you've got
Compared to the
five.
Avengers
You've got
universe.
5 characters though. You've got 5 distinct characters that are playing off each other.
Yeah, and they've had like one movie.
No, but so what? You can write something better than like "Come Get Some"
But
or
then
"Take That."
It's
or...
like the early 2000s Power Rangers.
No, that's bullshit. Like you can create characters and get them to interact off each other in an interesting way in the scope of a 2-hour film, especially when you're putting all of that towards the end. It wants to be the Breakfast Club. They meet their like detention people, and they all at some point open up about their past and their problems in a which is exactly what happens in the Breakfast Club. Those Breakfast Club characters are far more interesting and far more nuanced and have far better dialogue and far better interactions. And we didn't take 5 movies to get to know them. I think if you want to be the Breakfast Club, and not a bad template, like going forward and going, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to bring our Power Rangers together. They're the Breakfast Club. But they're more diverse than the Breakfast Club, and we're going to, go a little bit more serious with some of the stuff, but then, like, make them interesting. I feel like they're those sort of... Apart from, you've got the Asperger's-y guy.
Yeah.
Which is a bit Asperger's as a superpower played off throughout. And he's interesting, but kind of one note. Like, you get it. But then everybody else is. And still, the guy that you think's going to be the leader is the leader. And, which is the like, white jock football guy. It's, I don't know. It's not for me, anyway. Because I don't have that nostalgia as a kid, and I don't have the patience as an adult, and it's about teenagers, and I fucking hate teenagers. So, there you go. Power Rangers.
Power Rangers. It was fine.
Yeah. Is what it is. Shall we talk about diversity quickly?
Yeah.
I just want to recommend a movie. I won't say too much about it. You haven't seen it, so this isn't a proper review. But I did watch The Lure, Lure, and it is a Polish musical about mermaids. It's 2 mermaid sisters who end up getting a job at a nightclub. It's very weird. It is a musical, like people do sing about how they're feeling. It's directed by a woman. One of the mermaids is sort of falling in love. The other one wants to eat people. And it's really messed up, crazy, stylish, fucked up film. And it is a loose adaptation of The Little Mermaid, I think. There's a lot of parallels there, but there's just some really striking images, a lot of nudity, a lot of weirdness, some crazy performances, and I really loved it. It was so unique, and I feel like if you're looking to be challenged and see something really different, then there you go. It's not quite Greasy Strangler level, but it's almost got a touch of that weirdness in the characters. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something to look out for. And then a bit of TV diversity. You put me onto this.
Yeah, I had, after watching Power Rangers on Friday, I turned back onto the regular television and was met with a
Penis.
show. I was met with many penises. A show called Adam Looking for Eve, which is a reality show where a whole bunch of people are put on an island naked, and then they have to decide who they like and who they would like to take back to civilization to get to know with clothes on. That's basically it.
Was it a whole bunch of people? Because the ones I've watched, it's just 3.
The one I watched, there was 2 people together, and then they went to another island where there was more people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So SBS On Demand has the Danish version, the Netherlands version, and the German version.
Oh, shit. I don't know which one. I think I was watching the German version.
So there's 3 different versions, and so far they've all followed the same format pretty much, which is where a guy and a girl are on the island and they're both naked and they spend a night together. And then the next day, either another guy or another girl will turn up.
Oh, okay.
And the person that's in the minority, like if it's two guys, the girl will choose which one stays.
Yeah.
But then they don't actually stay. They get dressed and meet each other with their clothes on, and then they have to choose whether or not they're going to spend a night at the hotel and stay, or if they're going to go
home.
separate ways.
Yep.
Yeah, and they are naked. And I guess the Dating Naked show, which I have not seen, the American show, is probably the same concept. But because Americans are such Puritans, that's all pixelated, whereas this is just everything
Yes.
out there flapping in the breeze. Although you do, just as they get used to it very quickly, you do get used to it very quickly, I thought. Like you, at first you go, oh, what's this show? And you're sort of looking, and then you're playing games on your phone again, and you're not worried about it. I think the one thing they don't do, like they're reasonably tasteful about where the camera goes, as far as I've seen.
Yeah. Like they're not gonna, if a woman is getting up off a bed or something, they're not going to have the camera where they're going to catch an unflattering angle.
There's been a few guys sort of just, laying back on a hammock or whatever, flopping it around. But, when they first, because they walk towards each other naked and they sort of get closer and talk about their feelings to the camera about what they're seeing, they don't do that thing where, like they're going to be looking each other up and down as soon as they get together, but the camera doesn't do that. So you don't get to see what they see straight away, which I think kind of undermines the thing a bit. Because the whole idea is you get to see each other naked and you take that element out of the equation straight away. But for the viewer, sometimes I think, well, they've seen each other naked and now they're adjusting to that. But I haven't really seen them naked yet.
I think the one that I was watching, they were just wide shots, so you could see everybody.
Yeah. But, I think it's an interesting experiment because I think, most of the time you're wondering what everybody looks like naked. And to just take that out of the equation straight away, isn't that make life like so much easier?
I can't say I'm thinking about it a lot of the time.
Well, like,
sure.
of course you are. And wouldn't you like waste so much time like with people that you don't like because you wanted to see them naked, and then you don't have to anymore because you can just see them and you go, oh yeah, because it's not actually that exciting, is it?
No,
I think that's the thing. Like you realize and I know this from photographing nude models, like you have this skewed perspective. I think men grow up with a skewed perspective because of porn and because of angles and things. You think, that it takes up a lot of real estate, like you could wear it as a hat or something, but it's just not the case. Everything's very compact and, you don't see much. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really interesting. I think it's a concept that you could combine with some of my other favourite shows, like Bargain Hunt, I think would be great.
What, nude antiquing?
Yeah, nude antiquing if they go around. Just, again... So when people are bartering and stuff, they're not worried about. They're not thinking, "Oh, what does this person look like naked?" They're actually getting the best. They're thinking about the best prices and the best profit.
So where are they keeping the leftover lolly?
And the best deal? Well, nature's pocket. Yeah, you got to use what you got. Interesting show, I think. Although a lot of them are like 20 and they work out and they're like guys with big muscular frames and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where the concept sort of disappears, because I feel like if you put two 20-year-old singles together who work on their bodies,
they're probably just going to have sex anyway.
They're going to be naked.
Yeah.
They're going to be seeing each other naked within the next 10 or so minutes. But I just saw an interesting one just before you turned up. And I don't mean an interesting one as in a penis. I mean, there was this guy and he was I think it was the German one. He's a big dude, tattoos. She was quite slim, sporty, attractive. She was 20, but she had a child, which he seemed a bit, that's a bit weird. But he was attracted to her. She was attracted to him. And it kind of looked like they might have gone to the bone zone on that night when they slept together. They wake up. He tells a bit about his backstory. He's been to jail. He's done a lot of dumb things. We don't find out what they are, but he's done some stuff. Then suddenly, who should turn up but this other guy? This sort of young, handsome guy turns up with his totally shaved chop, and turns up and comes and meets the other guy, and the other guy's sitting on a bench, sort of with his hands between his legs, and the new guy comes up and is like, "Hi, I'm such and such," and he's just like, and he won't get up, and he left. He just wandered off and left because he could not stand being around this other guy's chop.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he just couldn't take it, so he buggered off. And this guy...
Say take it and bug it off in the same sentence.
Yeah, well, he just couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle it. Not even with tongs. Wasn't interested. So, yeah, he just abandoned it. And I thought, wow.
Yeah. The episode that I watched, there wasn't a great deal of pubic hair happening.
No. They all three of them were just smooth as. Very aerodynamic episode, I thought.
If they wanted to go and race on the beach, they would just not be wasting any time.
I thought, go cycling. Like, have a race, because they get to choose, what they do.
Yeah.
There was one girl, and she knows what the concept of the show is. She covered herself the entire time, like she was Venus rising from the water. Like, one arm across her boobs, another hand on her crotch, and just hopped around everywhere. She even did that playing Frisbee. Like, she was in the water so that she just had to cover her top with one hand. But she was really, like, ruining their Frisbee game because she wasn't very good at Frisbee while trying to cover her boobies.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't go on a, naked dating show if you don't want to be naked.
But the thing was, this goes back to my original theory that everybody's thinking about everybody naked because the guy was getting along so much better with the other girl, but he picked the one that was covering up because he wanted to see what she looked like without the hand in the way.
Oh.
She's
only covering up her nipples.
I know, but there was still a secret there. There was something that was off bounds. So he had to, then commit to months of courting her. In the hopes to,
Well, it's not really months of courting.
It could have been.
It's just, one night.
No, but, that's just the seed.
Well, that's what he's hoping to plant.
Yeah, I know, but you got to plant that seed and then let it grow into it. I don't think she was... I don't know. Maybe it was just the cameras.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's so weird, though, when you see them in clothes afterwards. I've never been so judgmental about people's clothing choices as I am in that, because it's the only sense you get... time when you get a sense of, well, what are they like taste-wise, socially...
The one I watched, when the guy put his clothes back on, he had a whole lot of piercings and was wearing this chunky jewelry and shit, and I was like, oh no, thank you, no thanks.
He's wearing a clown suit and a fright wig. Crazy. And they do prepare food in the nude as well, which
okay, not super hygienic.
It's not gonna win their little beach shack any Michelin stars.
No.
Let me tell you that. Maybe some chocolate starfish, but don't like the look I'm getting. So we're going to wrap the show up there, I think.
Yeah.
Anything we've missed?
No.
Okay.
Because we don't want to talk about Carl's or Rough Night anymore.
No, I think we're done with those. I can't imagine their film. I'm going to have to revisit Rough Night for ScarJo a go-go and get into her performance, but otherwise I would not. I was so... you'll be pleased, I did stop myself from... both the director and writer are on Twitter, and I did want to have a go at them about the Australian stuff, but I restrained myself. I didn't want
Start
to
up your own goddamn Twitter account to do that shit. Don't use our Twitter account.
I didn't want to be that guy. Let them have their opening. All right.
That's it. Next week. Yay, Transformers.
Woo, woo, woo. And Supernova.
Fuck, yeah.
That'll be a busy week.
Yes, it will be. Yeah. Thankfully, not too many people that want to get autographs from at Supernova. They did just announce David Wenham, which is delightful. So it'll be David Wenham and Dean Cain for all your 90s pop culture love.
I don't think there's anybody I want to meet. I liked Terry Hatcher at the time, but I just don't know. I don't think I'm keen.
I saw everyone posting their pictures from Sydney today. Pictures with Chris Hemsworth. That's been fun to look through that on Twitter.
Oh, were they lots of funny games and japes?
I haven't seen that many fun ones. He's just there in his black t-shirt, looking like he just rolled out of bed.
Were people lifting a hammer?
I have not seen any as such, but I only went through a little bit of Twitter this morning. So I'm sure there will be lots waiting for me when I get back to my phone.
Yeah. God, you'd think that when McKinnon worked with Chris Hemsworth, she would notice that he doesn't say basket and glass. Yeah. Apparently not. Probably never watched that movie. Expect us to watch it, but doesn't watch it herself. It's fine. Look, women. It's fine. Yeah, one rule for one, different rule for everybody else. Oh yeah. So listen. No, don't. Yes. Go to fruitlesspursuits.com where you can find out everything we're doing. Don't forget that Half Hour History, because it's a fortnightly show, is back this week. It's the Emu War episode, which is my favourite. So that'll drop on Thursday. Still thinking about what to do with Book Was Better. Did actually have lunch with Jess McLeod, founder of Book Was Better, yesterday, and we talked a little bit about the exit strategy. And iTunes, Facebook, come join our Facebook group. Talk to us about stuff and things and stuff. And I unplugged the iPad because of all that ghost stuff, so we don't have the Camelot or the Scream ready to go. I think the Scream should be added. That's pretty good. So we're going to have to do it ourselves again.
Yep.
Okay, ready?
Camelot. There'll never be another Camelot.